So today I'm going to talk about the new Zoneless change detection, and most importantly, the idea is to give you all the information to get ready to go Zoneless. But we will see it in a few minutes. Before starting, I would like to thank GrUSP for the opportunity to be here on this stage. 2 years ago, I attended my first Angular day, and I also improvised a lightning talk. It was an amazing experience, so I suggest you maybe next year to do it. Yeah, and also, yeah, these photos are super. I mean, I used them as a sticker on WhatsApp, so feel free to laugh. So today, I would like to give you the information to answer these questions. So what is the change detection, and how does it work with Zone.js? But then the most important topic is what does removing Zone.js means for the framework, and how the change detection will work without Zone.js. Then at the end, we are going to talk about how you can get ready to go Zoneless. So what you need to do. It's not a huge work that you need to do, but it's better that you know what you are doing. So let's start with the first one. What is the change detection? So if you are new to the framework, you need to know that Angular has this mechanism that is called change detection, which is able to guarantee that the user interface is always synchronized with the application state. So the idea is pretty simple. We have some data, and we would like to show a representation of this data on the template, and we would like to have the better representation than possible. So whenever we update the application state, we will have a new representation of the user interface. This is pretty easy for Angular when it revolves around the synchronous method. So like in this example, we have an output, which triggers a method. Angular knows when this method ends because it's triggering the method. So at the end of it, Angular can trigger the change detection because something may have changed in the application state. But it's more complex when it's revolving around asynchronous APIs, because Angular doesn't know. I mean, Angular knows, of course, but Angular knows about it thanks to a library called Zone.js. Zone.js is a library internally to the repository of Angular, to the monorepo, which heavily use the monkey patch technique, which is a technique to modify existing APIs and functions and runtime without the need to altering the source code. So you don't have to go there and change the actual code, but you can override at runtime something. So in this example, this can be an example, a simplified example of what Angular do with some APIs. At the end of the APIs, Angular call this method called tick of the application ref, which is actually what triggers the change detection. Thanks to Zone.js, Angular is able to track a lot of APIs, such as macro task, micro task, and event task. This is possible because Zone.js allow the framework to create something called a zone, which is an execution context where Angular can detect every event that is happening inside the application. So let's see an example. We have the typical graph of an application. It's pretty easy. We have the application ref, which is the class that Angular creates when we bootstrap the application. Then we have the app component, which is typically the first component of the application, the main one. Then we have some other components that are child of the app component, which may be an header, for example, a side menu, everything that you have as a child. And they can have also other children as well. So the first thing that you need to know is that Angular creates the Angular zone or ng zone. When you use it, probably you call it in this way, which wraps the application entirely. And whenever an event is fired inside one of the children, what happens is that the ng zone catch it. This is the best animation that I could find. Sorry. And what happens is that the Angular zone will call the application ref calling the tick method. Then the tick method will actually trigger the change detection. So it will go from the top component to the bottom in each branch, and it will check every component. This is pretty easy. It's an easy behavior, but it's not that performant. Because when I say that it's checking every component, I say that it's basically checking every binded property in the template. So this is why We usually don't use functions inside the template because it will run a function every time that there is an event, which is not so great from performance point of view. So you can also imagine how many events we have just by moving the mouse on our application. So yeah, the best that Angular can do actually is to do a lot of renders. Yeah, so in order to limit this behavior, we can use the onPush strategy. The onPush strategy is a way to say to Angular to skip some components during the change detection unless one of these 3 events occurs. So if we have an input update, if Angular triggers an event through output binding or event binding or host listener, so methods that Angular triggers. Or we mark the component as dirty using the mark for check method. So we are saying to Angular, hey, I would like you to check this component again during the change detection. Let's see an example of this. It's the same application that we saw before. It's pretty easy, but this time we have a component with the onPush change detection, which is the second branch of the tree. So when the event occurs in the same component that we saw before, the Angular zone will catch with this amazing animation. It will call the application ref. It will go from the app component to the bottom. It will go through the first branch. But this time, since we don't have updates in the second branch, we don't have the component is not marked as dirty, it will be skipped. So this is a huge improvement already. But let's see another example. So when an event happens inside one of the child component of the onPush branch. So the component would be marked as dirty. Also, its ancestors will be marked as dirty. Then the NgZone will catch the event. It will call the application ref. The app component will start. The second children, so the first children and the first branch. And this time, since the second branch is marked as dirty, the parent component is marked as dirty, it will also go through the change detection. So yeah, the change detection is great. In this way, it's improved, but there are some scenarios where it's still more or less not working perfectly. But you might think, it's easy to solve. Let's migrate everything to onPush strategy. And this is usually one of the architects that comes with this idea during your project. Huge success, you are going to do everything with the onPush. Wow, why we do not have done it before. Sorry for the English. This is a good strategy, but it actually comes at a cost, because you will need to think about immutability during the development. So you will think about a lot what you are doing. You will find yourself fixing a lot of bugs of a stale view, which is not updated. So you will have to use a lot the spread operator to update your objects or arrays in an immutable state. You will need to use a lot the mark for check, basically going to say to Angular manually when you want to check something, which is the total opposite of the default change detection, which is doing everything automatically. So yeah, you will end up like this. Okay, I see someone also laughing and crying. No, I'm joking. But yeah, so we can choose between 2 different ways of change detection. So the first one, which is the best from a developer experience point of view, we just update our variables and everything it's working automatically. Or we can choose, but it's not performant. I mean, it's doing too much. Or we can choose between using the onPush strategy, which is great, but it requires us to think a lot about what we are doing and to sometimes also mark for check manually what we want to update. So for this reason, last year, the Angular team introduced the 3 new APIs, 3 new directive primitives, or how they call it. And I will not bother you with all of the details, because last year everybody was talking about signals. It was really a tough year for us because everyone was talking about it. But let's just refresh. So we have three new APIs. We have signals. They can contain a value. We can set a value. We can track when that value changes using the other 2, so computed and effects. And what's important to notice is that whenever we set a value, this value will be not propagated unless there is a tick. So you can set the value like 5 times, but only the last one will be propagated before the next tick. Then we have computed, which are derived signals, read-only, that you can derive from other signals, and they will be updated when a signal is updated. one or more signals are updated. And then we have effects, which for a lot of people are quite confusing, but are pretty simple. It's basically a way to trigger some side effects when one or more signals updates their value. And this is really important because now, thanks to this technology, the Angular templates are able to track when you use a signal inside the template. And they are also able to track when a signal is updated, which is really cool because now, thanks to this mechanism, we can improve. Angular could improve even further the change detection mechanism. So let's see the same example. Now we have both components with the on-push strategy. Let's think about an event that can probably, it's in the graph. So an event that triggers a signal update in one of the components. It will mark the component as something called refresh view. Its ancestors will be marked as something so difficult to say, which is called as child view to refresh. For me, it's super difficult. Then the NgZone will catch the same event. The application ref will start, the app component will start, but this time the change detection will start with something called global mode, which is like the default mode of the change detection. It will go through the app component, and now when the change detection will find an on-push component, which is marked as child view to refresh, it will go in something called targeted mode. So basically, it will skip that component because it has a child to refresh, not itself. It will go through its children, and it will try to, it will search for the refresh view. So it will skip everything except for the refresh view. So in this example, we have the refresh view, which is the component that we now have updated. Then it will go back to the global mode, and it will go back with the other part of the tree. And in this case, it will skip it. So this is a huge improvement. We started with everything was green, then we improved something, and now we are going really close to update just the single component. So this is great, but we are still relying on Zone.js. And this is bad. This is really bad. This is bad because Zone.js is affecting our performance of the application because we need to load the library. And the increasing number of the APIs that the library needs to patch, it's making the library heavy to load. Actually, in the bundle is not so much, but to load the application it's affecting, for example, the LCP of the core web vitals. So it's not making our application so fast to load. Then the debugging is not that great because we have a ton of files from Zone.js, and actually we don't care about those files. It's not something that we would like to care. And also for the Angular team, it's difficult to maintain this system and to evolve the framework into new ways. And finally, we have the compatibility issue, which is probably the issue that is the hard one to solve, because we cannot use some libraries in a correct way because they are relying on some native APIs at event listeners, and they are triggering too much the change detection. So you will find yourself fighting with Zone.js, trying to run something outside of zones and something inside of zones. So for me, it's like this movie, Karate Kid, with zone off, zone on, which is not the best. We should just develop, and that's it. So now that we have this mechanism, this improved mechanism to signals, the Angular team introduced something new, which is called Zoneless change detection, which is an experimental provider. It's experimental, so don't use it super early, try just to test it. And this is actually what I did. So just to give you the last graph, I promised you that this is the last one. So we have now the same graph, but we don't have Zone.js anymore. So we don't have the zone. But we still are relying on Zone.js to run the change detection because we still are relying on it to inform the application ref. So without Zone.js, we are going to rely on something that is called change detection scheduler, which is already in the framework from the V18. I'm not sure if it was also before there, but it's from the V18 for sure. And this will inform the application ref. It's not wrapping the application, it's just informing the application. And in order to be notified itself about when to run the change detection, it will rely just on APIs of Angular. So the change detection mark for check, the update of a signal that we saw before. When we use host listener, template listener, set input method, when we attach or detach a view. When we register a render hook, like the after render and the after next render, when we load some animations, and when we use the deferrable views that Giorgio showed us. And what is important to notice here is that there is the mark for check. Why this is important? Because we saw before that the mark for check was just marking the component as dirty. It was not triggering the change detection. But starting from V8, for compatibility reason, it's now also triggering the change detection. So that's why we can go zoneless easily, but we will see it in a moment. So in order to try this new change detection, we just need to use this provider in our application. Then we can remove zone.js from the package.json, from the polyfills of the angular.json file, and we are finally free from zone. But wait, our application might not work. So it means that it's time for a small refactor, not huge. So I prepared a small demo. It's really, really small. The idea of the demo is to migrate this small demo to zoneless. I see someone is laughing, so probably you noticed the GrUSP name on the fake IKEA shop. So we are going to migrate it to zoneless. We are going to refactor this small, really small application where necessary, and then we are going to reintegrate zone. Because the idea that I would like to show you is what you can do to prepare your application to go zoneless, not to go immediately on zoneless. So the idea is that you can do the refactor gradually. So let's do it. So yeah, this is the application. It's not a huge one, but it just do a fetch. It takes some APIs, some data. What I can show you about this application. So when we start the application, we just fetch a list. We show a list of components. We have a logger, which is logging the when we have a render, which is made in a way that I will show you. And then we have also a search bar, which is changing color. This is to mimic some maybe third-party libraries that can affect the DOM without using Angular properly. And then, of course, when we select something, when we search for something, we are going to find something. And this is the application. Maybe let me increase the code because I think you don't see it. Okay, this is already the page. But let's migrate this application to. No, before I can also show you the proof that it's using zone because we have it in the console. Okay. So. Let's open the app config. So we have the app config now. It's an application that it was generated starting from Angular 18. So this means that you will find this one when you generate a new application now, which is the zone change detection provider. We can remove it. We can activate this one. No, this one, which is the experimental zoneless change detection provider. Okay, now that we did it, we can also go into the package.json to remove zone.js, which is the most satisfying operation of everything on this demo. We can also go here and remove from here. Okay, and also from here, which are the two scripts that we have. No, don't suggest it to me, thanks. So the migration in theory, it's already done. But of course, let me show you that something is not working, because otherwise my demo is working too much. Ta-ta! It's not working. It's already broken. It's in the script, so don't panic. Let me put it in a way that we can both see the application failing to run. Let me close it here. So we basically have this page. It's just one page. It's not multiple components in order to make the demo so easy that it's easy also for me to show you. We just have we have a search bar. We have an event listener here, which is calling a method. We have the ng-on-init, which is calling the fetch, the initial fetch. And then we have the filter list, which is calling another API from a service in order to load. We are saving the loading state and the list of Pokemons in some plain variables, so easy. It's not signaled so far, but we are going to implement them. So and we are also showing, of course, the list in using the for. So it's pretty easy. So what we can do, the first thing that we can do is, of course, to use this dot change detection ref, not the detect changes, thank you, but the mark for check, which is pretty basic. We can do it here. We can do it also here. In theory, it should work. It's working. Let me just make it a little bit better. Okay, it's working. We can also search, and it's working. We can see that the logger is still not working because it's another technology, but we will see it. So, I mean, this can work, but this is more or less like it's going to use just the on-push strategy, which is okay. I mean, it's compatible, but so we can also use, for example, let me remove it, just the async pipe, for example. So I have an observable here, which we can use here, for example. Of course. So this is also compatible. So if you're using the async pipe in your application, congratulations, because it's going to work also in Zoneless. But this is actually working because under Vue, the async pipe is using the mark for check method. So just as you know. What else we can do? Of course, let's use signals. So we can translate this into thank you, Copilot. Why not? No. Nice, Copilot, thank you. Then we can do like this. Amazing. Like this. It's pretty boring, probably for you, but it's a refactor, so it's always boring. And we can do like this. Loading is true. And finally, we can do like this. Of course, something is broken because I need to update this one. And I know also that I need to update this one even if it's not broken, because it happened to me like 100 times during the test that I did at home. So it's working, we can see. Voila. Which is basically, we can also implement at this point the on-push change detection. I mean, now that we have implemented all of this, you can also use the on-push change detection easily. Of course, if you are already using the on-push detection, you should be safe. Then what else? We have still the logger that is not working, and I show you how it works. I just try to mimic easily a use case that is so rare to use, actually. So when you use the NgZone, you will not find the NgZone implemented correctly because you don't have the Zone.js anymore. You don't have the NgZone anymore. It will be implemented like ngNope, more or less. So basically, this method will not fire. If you're using them, they are usually used in some complex scenarios when you want to perform some operations after the renders. It's pretty rare, honestly, but if you're using it, you need to know how to refactor those. So in order to refactor this, you can do like this. It's just should be like this after render and the after next render. So you can use these new hooks that are performing more or less the same job, but they are also compatible in SSR and also in the current version of Angular. So if you're using a library, if you are developing a library which uses these methods, you can refactor with this, and your library will be compatible also with zone-based and zoneless change detection. Then what can I say else? We are using here run outside Angular, which is usually used to run something outside of zone in order to not trigger the change detection. Remember the meme of zone off, zone on? If you are going to go zoneless, you can totally remove it because we don't have zone anymore, so we can just use our functions on plain JavaScript or TypeScript. So you can just remove it and it will work the same in a zoneless context, because this function will be just fired once they are registered. So you can see that this color is changing. Of course, our goal is to leave our application to be compatible with both zone and zoneless change detection, because maybe you are, again, developing a library, so you need to guarantee the compatibility. So let's leave it like this. And now we can integrate Zone again, which is so painful for me. But yeah, let's integrate it again just to show you that actually we. I need also to show you. No, let's stop here the sharing, the ngServe. Let's reintegrate everything just by reverting the changes. Let's revert also this one. So now we have Zone again. Okay. No, of course, the application is working again. So we made some changes. Our application now it's working for both the changed actions. And let's jump at the end of the talk. Okay, so just let's recap the steps that I suggest you to do in your application. So I suggest you to migrate each component to on-push changed action if you don't have it already, by using the mark for check and the async pipe, which the mark for check will make the changed action trigger again if you're using already the 18. But it's okay when you're thinking about going zoneless because it's required. Of course, if you're using signals, today you are already getting more advantages and performance improvements, so use signals, please. Then you can replace the methods that I showed you before, so the onStable and the onMicroTaskEmpty methods after the using the after render and the after next render. And finally, if you are going to zoneless change detection and you are sure that you don't want to go back and you don't need to give compatibility, you can totally remove each run method of the ngZone because there are several ones which change a little bit from one for the other. So you can totally remove those and just call your function. You don't need to run something outside of zone. There is not zone anymore. So I suggest you also to embrace the signal APIs because the more you use, the more it's easy to actually use and to prepare your application to go zoneless, which means I suggest you to use the new signals APIs, such as the new view children and content child and children also, the APIs, so the new queries, the new input and models signals, which they are a way to substitute the input basically. And if you're using libraries such as NgRx, NgXS, Rx Angular, sorry Nina, I'm talking about other state managements. If you're using those, you're probably using already a pattern that supports something like this. So probably you're already using heavily the async pipe. And these libraries also offer a signal implementation. So you can also start to using signals in your template easily because you're already using these libraries. Finally, yeah, just recap that we can now choose something else. So we don't have to choose between developer experience and performance, but we can choose to go zoneless because in the future it will be, for us it will be easy. From the performance point of view, we have huge improvements, but also from the developer experience. If you're using signals, yeah, it's not easy like just assign a variable, a value to a variable. It's a little bit more complex because you need to use the set method, but I mean, it's not so complex. And the developer experience is really easy. You don't need to manage to check, mark for check, to use something like this. You just update your signal and Angular will do everything for you. Finally, if I still didn't convince you because it's experimental, who knows when it will be ready, think about that the Google team is already using it in production on Google Font application. So it means that yes, it's experimental, but for some use cases it's already working and you can already use it. And probably it means also that it's going to be stable soon. Let's hope. So now that the talk is over, I can present myself. My name is Davide Passafaro. I'm a senior front-end engineer at A-Work. I was authorized to say that we are searching for a front-end developer if you are interested. During the last 8 years, I worked as a front-end developer, mainly using Angular, NgRx, Capacitor, Electron, so everything around the Angular topic. I lead 2 communities, Angular Rome community, which is a community, you can guess by the name, that revolves around Angular in Rome. And as Michela said, I recently founded a new community in Rome, which is a GGG chapter, Roma Città. We are going to have our first event in few days, so if you are in Rome, we have good talk, pizza, beers, everything that it's a combination for the success. If you like the talk, these are my contacts to reach me. If you didn't like the talk, reach me. Again, it's okay if you reach me and you can offend me. We can discuss about it. We can find a solution. And I can say that I'm sorry, writing maybe an article to cover what was missing. Why not? And that's it. This is the QR code for the agenda and for feedbacks.
Thank you, Davide.
Thank you.
Maybe a little bit more slow.
Yeah.
But yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you. What the...
Yeah.
So, do Go Zoneless have some advantages in micros front-end scenario?
Okay, yeah. I'm not an expert on micro front-end. I never understood why you should do it for yourself. But yeah, I know for sure that there may be some issues with the Zone.js basically because Zone.js is patching the native APIs, so you may have some issues with the integration of the different applications, which is expected. I mean, the monkey patching is a bad practice because you don't know what will happen into your API, so you deserve it if you choose to go on micro front-end. But yes,
Me for sure.
You
Me
for sure. But yes, going zoneless, it should guarantee to you less issues with the micro front-end.
Okay.
Micro front-end, yeah.
Then, if I already went zoneless, why should I still change the change detection strategy to push?
True. I don't have the perfect answer to this. I can just say that you still need to mark the component as on push in order to have that huge improvement of the targeted mode. But if you ask me why, I don't know perfectly. I mean, I don't know because for me, I was also expecting it to be like automatic. I mean, it's zoneless. I am expecting to use mark for check and signals everywhere, so I expected it to be automatic. But actually, I don't know why. But yeah, once that you are in zoneless, why not put it on push? It should be compatible already.
Okay. My experience is not mine.
Your experience. No,
of course.
Take your responsibility.
When I utilize async pipe, the whole component re-rendered.
Re-rendered.
Yes.
Something like this.
Sorry.
Yes.
With signals, only the part of template where the signal was used. What's up with that?
So, read it again because I think I lost
My experience is when I utilize async pipe,
Everything
the whole components
re-rendered. Yeah,
I'm not able.
Okay, I will say it for you.
With signals, only the part of template where the signal was used. What's up with that?
So you are, I don't know which was the perfect goal because I think that is missing something at the end. But yeah, so I will try to interpret it.
Bravissimo.
So if you're expecting that using signal, only the small piece of the component would be rendered again, so not just the whole component, but just this single piece. I'm not sure it's already happening, but I know for sure that it's something that is on plan on the Angular framework. It's like 1 year ago, I opened the request for feedbacks, and they were talking about signal components, which should be able to do this. So they should be able to load just the single piece of the component. So if you imagine like to have a table and you have 4 there, each row it's like a different part of the template, and Angular should be able to render just the single row and not the whole table. But I'm not sure it's already in place. If it is, nice. It's a huge improvement. If it's not like this, yeah, stay tuned because we'll understand.
Last question.
Okay, for question, thank you.
What is the moment that Angular starts the change, checks to verify if a signal has marked a component changed? If multiple signals are changed, waits until the last one is done, so obviously the signal doesn't start it, at least not immediately.
Yeah,
there is no like question mark, but
yeah. Okay, I can get that. More or less the question is super technical, so thank you for asking me. So the idea is that when you have a signal that has been updated, it will probably trigger also other signals. So if you have a signal, it will update probably an effect, also another computed, which may trigger another computed. It's like a reaction. So Angular will try the best but I don't know how perfectly, but it will try the best to wait until everything is stable. I think that they are probably doing something with the a sort of race between some like the animation frame and something else. So the APIs are really complex, but the APIs will try to wait for everything to be stable before triggering the tick. So this makes the signals glitch free. I have an example somewhere, a slide in another talk about why, like for example, RxJS, it's not glitch free. You can create a lot of glitches, but with signals you should be free from that. So that's why signals were made for template to be consumed in the template. So yeah, I don't know perfectly where is the moment. It's super technical, and honestly, I even don't care. I mean, I'm sure that signals are working really fine to be used to guarantee a perfect representation of the template.
Okay, thank you very much, Davide, again.